If there's an area where you're struggling in your relationships, whether it's family, romantic relationships, or friends, it's likely due to the way you think. Thriving relationships don't just happen, they require intentionality and a willingness to grow. Today, we're talking about the mindsets that will transform how you approach relationships so that you can build stronger, healthier connections. We're going to be switching things up just a little bit on the channel. Each month, we're doing a series so that we can dive deeper and really unpack the topic. And with this month having Valentine's Day, we're going to be talking all about healthy relationships. Over the course of the month, we're going to be talking about marriage, singleness, friendships, and family relationships. So if you're ready to start thinking differently about your relationships, let's get into it. I'm going to start with one of my favorite scriptures. Ephesians 4:2-3 says, always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Make every effort to keep yourselves united in the spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. As we talk all throughout this month about healthy relationship mindsets, I want you to have those as the parameters. So here's the first mindset. Thriving relationships don't happen by accident. Healthy relationships require intentionality. And I know people are going to be mad at me for saying this, but fairy tales don't really happen. All relationships that are good and healthy, they require work. They require effort for you to put into them. So if you want a healthy relationship and it's not, think about, are you putting in what you want to see out of that relationship? Are you showing up consistently? Are you communicating? Are you doing the things that are required to have a healthy relationship? Healthy relationships require you to learn skills. We are all products of how we grew up, of how we were raised, of the friendships and the relationships that we had in our formative years. We are also a product of our past, of the things that we've experienced. But even in all those things, none of us got all the skills that are required to have a healthy relationship. So you might have grown up in a house where your parents didn't argue. And so you think, oh, that's great. But actually, real relationships, they are going to have disagreements. You might be lacking in the skill of being able to have healthy arguments or healthy conversations or being able to confront things. On the other hand, you might have grown up in a house where everybody got mad and doors were slammed and people got cussed out and somebody left and didn't come back for the night. And that taught you some things as well. So none of us come to any relationship with all the skills that are required for it to be healthy. That means if you want a healthy relationship, you're going to have to learn skills like communication, like empathy, like showing appreciation. Here's another key. Relationships should always be about discovery. You should always be learning and trying to understand the other person. And this is key in all the different relationships in your life. You should be intentionally trying to learn the other person. What that looks like on a practical level is, in your friendships, do you know your friend's love language? As a mom, as a dad, do you know your children's love language? How do they receive love? Because one thing that I see people doing, they want to give love in the way that they receive love. And that doesn't always work, because if your love language is giving gifts, so you're giving somebody gifts, but they want quality time, your gift doesn't make them feel loved. They want to spend quality time because that's how they receive it. So as you are being intentional, you need to have a process of discovery, of learning that other person, what their love language is, what their key needs are, so that you can show up in that relationship ready to help meet those needs. Remember this, what you cultivate will grow. People always say the grass is green on the other side. The grass is green where you water it. What have you been doing to water and cultivate your relationships? If you want a thriving relationship, be intentional about how you invest in that relationship. Key mindset number 2, you cannot change someone else. You can only change yourself. And a lot of times when I hear people talking about what is going on in a relationship, of course, the first thing they tell me about is the other person. You can only change you. You can't force anybody to grow. You can't force anybody to change. You can change how you respond. You can change how you show up. You can change how you communicate. And hopefully, as you do that, the other person will see that and grow. And then you can kind of start talking and communicating and learning and building together. But you can't force anybody. So if your relationship is not one that is serving you, Figure out what you can do differently. Don't try to fix people. You become the best version of yourself. And sometimes this means that, yes, you will outgrow people. There will be relationships and you come to realize this just is not working anymore. And that is okay. One of our biggest myths with relationships is that relationships are going to be with us for a lifetime. And some relationships were only meant to be for a season, especially if you find yourself as you work to be the best version of yourself, you continue to grow. You just may outgrow some people. It's okay. I can still, care about them and love them, but maybe we don't have the same relationship as we had before. As you are becoming the best version of yourself, it's important to set clear standards and boundaries in your relationship. And I'm not talking about some of this stuff that we see on the internet now where people are like, I demand you to take me to this type of restaurant. Those are my standards. I'm talking about setting standards for your relationship. So in a friendship, that could look like making sure that you both understand if you plan something that we're going to be considerate of each other's time. We're going to show up when we say we're going to show up, and we're going to honor our commitments. Now, the other day I was talking to someone and she told me, she said, I'm just really frustrated in my relationships. I feel like everybody calls me to dump all of their problems. They just call me and they just unload. And I said to her, who put you in charge of waste management? You don't have to accept their garbage. You don't have to let them back all their trash up to your front door. She paused for a minute. It was almost like she had a moment to say, oh, I really don't have to accept that. If I don't have the emotional bandwidth to deal with you dumping everything on me, I'm not going to continue to let you dump on me. So there's some healthy ways you can handle that. Again, setting boundaries. You can say to them, okay, we've talked about your problem for 15 minutes. Let's pray about it. What are the solutions? How can we move forward? That's signaling to them that we're not going to have a 2-hour conversation where you just emotionally vomit all over me. That is how you set standards and boundaries. Communicate openly. Keep the line of communication open. When communication stops, connection stops. You're not going to see the relationship change until you begin to communicate of what you need, of what's working and what's not working. When you change how you show up, it will naturally shift the course of the relationship. Mindset number 3, you are responsible for your own happiness. Let me say that again. You are responsible for your own happiness, not anybody else, not the person that you're in relationship with. You are responsible for your own happiness. Don't try to find somebody that completes you or a relationship that completes you. Only God can do that. And when you are requiring somebody else to complete you or make you happy, you're going to end up frustrated and disappointed, because that is not a weight that anybody else was meant to carry. Only God can do that. Your joy and your peace should come from God and your sense of who you are in Him, not from another person. So when you think about specifically in a romantic relationship, if you're saying, hey, I'm looking for my other half, I'm looking for somebody to make me whole, you need 2 whole people to have a whole relationship, not 2 broken pieces, not 2 halves coming together. You need whole people. A lot of times people think, oh, it's 50-50, like, with your friendships. Oh, I do this for her and then she does this for me. I do this for him and he does this for me. Because we are not perfect, you might have to show up at 80% and your friend only has 20. And that's okay, because sometimes they're going to have the opposite, right? They're going to have the 80 and you'll have the 20. So you have to show up as a fully formed whole person in yourself so that you're not putting that unfair pressure on somebody else to make you happy, to make you content, to make you whole. You should be that already. Take ownership of your own happiness, of your own joy, instead of trying to find somebody else to provide it. Here's the final mindset for today. Forgiveness is a must. Luke 6:37 says, forgive others and you will be forgiven. It said, forgive others and you will be forgiven. So if you want God to continue to forgive you, that means you have to walk in forgiveness. The thing about forgiveness is we get a lot of it wrong. So I'm going to talk about what forgiveness is, and I'm going to talk about what forgiveness is not. We were never meant to carry the weight of unforgiveness. When you have unforgiveness in your heart, it is a weight that you carry around. As long as you haven't forgiven, whatever and whoever caused that offense, it's going to take up space rent free in your mind. And here's the thing about it. When I see people that stuck in unforgiveness over childhood hurts or relationship hurt, the perpetrator has already forgotten about it. They over there living their best life and you are still stuck because you haven't let it go. So let's talk about what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not forgetting what happened. You can remember what they did, as I told you guys before, learn the lesson and forget the details. You can remember what somebody did and still choose to forgive them. Forgiveness is not allowing the offense to continue. It's not allowing the same abuse. I can forgive you and set boundaries. I can forgive you and say, okay, this stops today. I'm going to forgive. That does not mean that you still get to offend me. I can remove myself from the situation. Forgiveness is not reconciliation. You can forgive somebody and that relationship is never the same. That's okay. Forgiveness sometimes looks like that. It says, I forgive you for what you did to me, and in protection of myself or my children or my peace, I'm going to remove myself from this relationship. And forgiveness is not automatically restoring trust. I can forgive you and say, you know what? I forgive you, but I don't trust you yet. I need boundaries. I need assurances. I'm going to need a little bit more communication because there has been a breach. Trust, you need to build that back. So just because you forgive somebody doesn't automatically mean, well, now I trust you again. It doesn't mean everything goes back to normal. Forgiveness is you choosing to let go of vengeance, to let go of resentment, and to let go of negative thoughts towards that person. It's also about freeing yourself from the bitterness that you can get trapped into. As I talked about, where you're stuck and that person has moved on, or maybe they haven't, but sometimes you just got to worry about you. We can't worry about what they're doing. I'm going to forgive because I need freedom. I'm going to forgive because I need to move on. You don't forgive somebody because they deserve it. You forgive them because you deserve to have peace. You deserve to move on. You deserve to live again. And sometimes forgiveness is not just about other people. I was talking to a guy recently and he had gotten burned in a previous relationship. And what he realized is he hadn't forgiven himself. So he was still stuck because he hadn't forgiven himself for, as he called it, getting played. He thought he should have known better. He should have saw the signs. And he had to let go of the unforgiveness he had for himself. What I want you to take from this is that holding on to unforgiveness, it holds you back. God commands us to forgive so that he can forgive us. Relationships thrive when we lead with love, consistency, and intentionality. Thriving relationships start with healthy mindsets. And when you get the mindsets down, you'll see everything begin to change. Now, next time, we're going to be talking about healthy marriage mindset. So if you're married or you want to be married one day, you do not want to miss it. Make sure you're subscribed. Click the notification bell so that you can follow along with the series. Also, drop your burning relationship questions in the comments. I'll be using them to shape our conversations throughout the month. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you send it to someone else who would enjoy it. Remember, if you change your mind, you'll change your life.